This is a Pro Wrestling Illustrated podcast. I am your host, PWI senior writer Al Castle, joined once again by my co-host, Brian Solomon. How's it going?
It's going all right in my downstairs, very cool office here in my house, thankfully.
Yes, yeah, you wouldn't know it from my sweater, but I'm also in the basement where it's nice and cold. But we are going through one of the hottest heat waves in here in the Northeast in the U.S. in like 15, 16 years. I mean, I think it's supposed to get to like, what's the real feel, like 108? I haven't even been outside today to avoid it.
Yeah, and it's I think it's 90 something for real and probably about 10 degrees hotter with the whole heat index thing.
Yeah. So anyway, I know how it is in your parts, Jason. Joining us also, Jason McVeigh from our UK correspondent, PWI contributing writer. Welcome back, Jason.
Thank you for having me. It is not that hot here. It is raining. Shocking, I know, in the UK. But yes, it's typical summer rain here.
Yes.
That's okay.
We've got a lot. Yes, I'm sorry. Just going to say we got a lot to cover from a particularly busy weekend. I can't remember this many PLEs in one weekend, 3 in a day, right?
One day,
on
yeah.
Sunday. Yeah. So we had WWE Night of Champions, NXT Great American Bash, TNA Slammiversary, and AEW / New Japan / CMLL Forbidden Door. I mean, that's like just about everybody over the course of 2 days. And a lot of news coming out of it. New world champions, some big main events for some stadium shows coming up. So we'll cover it all in a moment. Real quick, speaking of stadium shows, PWI's annual Supercards issue, our summer 2026 issue, available now at pwi-online.com. By the time you're reading this, the next one might already be out. So, but I'll plug it anyway. A terrific issue, one you don't want to miss. Coverage of WrestleMania and many other, speaking of shows from all the big companies, they're pretty much all included here in our Supercards issue, plus a lot more. Head on over to pwi-online.com and subscribe so you don't miss any of them. You could also subscribe there to Jason's weekly newsletter, completely free, and so much more. So go do that. I'm going to keep the plugs short here so we could plow along on a little bit of a time crunch today. So let's jump into it. Night of Champions, probably the biggest story, even though there's competition for what the biggest story of the weekend is, given everything that was going on. But certainly for me, and I think a lot of fans, the shock of the weekend was Sami Zayn winning the WWE Championship in the triple threat bout with Cody and Gunther. I don't know. I never know what you predict, Brian. You're good at these things, but I certainly didn't see that coming. Were you equally surprised?
No, well, yeah, I was. I didn't see it coming either, but it's like those what we've said about some other people. I think we said it about Drew McIntyre. It's like, if you keep putting him in that spot, he's got to get it eventually, or no one is going to take him seriously. So either just don't put him in that spot, or you have to pull the trigger. And, people were losing their minds. I mean, I'll say it. Vince Russo just on talking about how it was ridiculous and Sami Zayn, it should never happen, and it's embarrassing and all this. Look, maybe I'm wrong. Anybody that can't tell that this is like a short-term feel-good transitional thing. I mean, did you just start watching wrestling? You know what I mean? Like this is there's a plan here. There's a goal. I mean, I was more surprised that they had Oba Femi give up the title shot at SummerSlam, because that was something I could have seen coming a mile away. You do the whole underdog thing with Sami Zayn. He drops the title to Oba Femi, and now you've got Oba Femi and Brock Lesnar for the title. That's my fantasy booking. But so I'm not surprised that, well, I am surprised that he won it. However, I felt like it had to happen eventually.
We'll talk about Oba in a minute, but I get what you're saying, but also it's sort of like the case for not doing it, right? When you're and I know it's more complicated than this, but when part of the reasoning for putting a world title on somebody is sort of shit or get off the pot sort of kind of thing. It's like, well, is that good enough? I mean, and there is a reality that up until a couple of weeks ago, I don't think it's exaggerating to say Sami was firmly entrenched in the mid card, unable to capture the U.S. title, dropping the U.S. title to Trick and unable to get it back and losing quite a bit. And we go from there. He cut that promo earlier in the year where he talked about this is the year that I win the world title. I think that was this year. And yes. I think a lot of fans, myself included, sort of rolled our eyes. With the one caveat in my mind was like, well, there's 2 world titles, so maybe he gets the world heavyweight championship. Me looking at it as that's, there's the real world title, the Bruno title, which is the one that he won, and then there's the new one. But no, he'd run the real. This is the WWE championship. This is the one with the lineage, and I didn't see it coming. I won't be as harsh as Vince Russo, but there's definitely part of me that is sort of like. But it's like the goal to watch thing. Well, he's been here so long, so let's give it to him.
Yeah, but I mean, when there's a plan, I don't mind if there's a plan or something. I mean, you mentioned Bruno Sammartino, right? It's like sort of like saying, well, why is Stan Stasiak getting the title? I mean, there's a goal here. It's because we don't want Pedro to have to lose to Bruno, right? I mean, that's what I mean when I say, look, if it's not a short-term thing, if they go full bore on Sami Zayn, I will admit I'm wrong. I mean, I will jump on the side with Vince Russo. I just don't think that is going to happen. I think that there's a purpose here. Genuinely shocking, though. I mean, I'll give you a quick story. My wife had to have minor surgery last week. She's fine, but we happened to be visiting her in the hospital with my family on the day that Night of Champions was happening. So my son is like, Dad, could we, because I had my laptop with me, could we watch a little bit? Like, because she had a big room, fortunately, where we weren't all on top of each other. So I'm like, all right, fine. So we put it on like right in the middle of the main event. Like we missed almost everything. We put it on like an idiot. When the finish happened and Sami won, I jumped up and I just started going, I can't believe that he won, and we're in a hospital room.
The nurses
My wife is in the bed, right? The nurses are there and they're looking at me like, really, So, I mean, it was genuinely surprising.
I'm just jealous of you that you've got a kid who wants to watch wrestling. And the flip side of that is my kids couldn't care less these days, but I put that on for them and they were like, Sami Zayn won the world title. I mean, it was, I mean, it's sort of like shocking for everyone. Jason, we haven't heard from you. I mean, what was your reaction and what do you think of the decision and what do you suspect maybe the bigger plan is here, if there is one?
I have to say, I was not shocked whatsoever. In fact,
really,
when he was inserted into this, I was convinced he was going to win. And I have been thinking this for a year now, that at some Saudi Arabian event, sometime soon, Sami Zayn was going to win the belt.
Well, if you were ever going to do it,
yeah. I thought that's where it was definitely going to happen. I was convinced he was actually going to win the Royal Rumble this year. Didn't happen. So wasn't shocked at all to see him win this. And again, I'm kind of going the opposite direction than you guys. I don't think this is a short-term deal. I think his US title run that he had last year was terrific. He was wrestling every week and putting on just banger matches every week on SmackDown. I think that was kind of a test to kind of see, can he be the guy week to week for us? And I think they believe he can. And I expect him to have this for a little bit longer than maybe some people do.
What do you think the SummerSlam match is?
I think it's him and Cody in a rematch because I think they're going to do.
And he retained?
And I think he retains. And I think he probably leans into being this kind of smarmy heel that is so self-righteous and thinks he's above everyone else and that everyone else is wrong and he's right and he's the last good guy and the last hero. And I think they're going to lean into this massively going forward.
And we should talk about that too. I mean, sort of the whole kind of character arc, because I don't know what I think about it. I mean, I wonder if it's a little too clever for its own good in that he's being sort of booked as a heel and they're clearly going for the heel reactions, but he really hasn't until now done anything all that underhanded, right? And it gets sort of further complicated when you do it in Saudi Arabia and he basically plays a babyface and he gets the babyface reaction. So as we're recording this, we haven't seen Sami again on SmackDown. What are you expecting, Brian, as far as what the character arc is here?
Well, of course, they kind of did the whole Bret Hart in Canada thing, right? Where it's the big baby face
Yes.
win, but we're assuming that when he comes back to America, right, he'll be right back to being, like you said, the smarmy heel. I mean, I kind of like what they've done with him, where when he comes out and says, look, I don't even know why you don't like me anymore. I mean, just the fact of acknowledging that, I think, just makes it kind of different and interesting, different from the usual heel turn, because it's very true. It's like, clearly he's a heel. Why? Hard to explain. He just is. He just had this very gradual, slow burn heel turn to the point where now he is clearly a heel. But as far as the SummerSlam thing with him goes, I know I said that I was very surprised that it wasn't him and Oba Femi, because I just thought, like, oh, that's what's going to happen. I have to say, I don't really mind the idea of the King of the Ring winner ditching the SummerSlam title match. And to be honest with you, I think we've said this before, I wouldn't mind if that just went away entirely. I just feel like you already have the Royal Rumble where the winner gets the title shot. Now you're going to do this, and it's like you're booking yourself into too many corners, and you're making too many things predictable. So it's like we've said for years how many years you can see the Royal Rumble winner coming a mile away. Now we're saying, okay, we could see the King of the Ring winner coming a mile away, and I don't mind that. I think the King of the Ring can just be like a really cool thing that you win, like a title. It doesn't have to be this set in stone thing. So that part I don't mind.
Well, I agree, except that's what they're doing. I mean, like, it's fine to say that to remove the stipulation that the winner gets the title shot at SummerSlam,
right?
But they didn't do that. No. It was sold to us as the winner gets a title shot, and then they just changed their mind.
Right?
So, like, it's kind of a mess, and it is one. Not to be too critical of WWE here, except if they deserve it. But coming out of Night of Champions and then the fallout on Raw, things do seem sort of like in flux as ever, and it does very much feel like they are ripping up scripts day to day. I mean, why even have? I feel like we're jumping the gun before we finish the Sami conversation, but why have Oba win the King of the Ring tournament just to not do the title shot?
Right. It would have been fine though if they didn't have that stipulation prearranged.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like he's a no-brainer to win it. But you're right, they did. And I mean, but again, I'm gonna just say again, I don't mind it, because look, they may have ripped up the plans and this may not have been what they wanted to do. But I don't agree with the people. There's people online saying, this is wrong because the world title should always be the number one goal, and to have a wrestler purposely give up a title shot is wrong. I don't know if I agree with that. And I know I'm a very old school fan. I mean, there have definitely been feuds going way back that have been so hot that the wrestlers didn't even care about titles, and they would rather wrestle the guy that they hated so much rather than go for the title. I mean, it's not a new thing. And again, it's all about this whole, like, everything has to be booked in this simplistic way. And I don't agree with it. I don't mind that he gave up the title shot to go after Brock Lesnar, but it's probably not what their original plan was, though.
Yeah, I mean, there's a way for all of this to work out for the better, for sure. But I think it's fine to criticize how they get there, including the way they got to Brock and Oba in Hell in a Cell. Brock just beating him up, and then Brock challenging him to Hell in a Cell. It's sort of backwards, right? I mean, isn't
true?
Why would Brock beat him up at all? He's the last to have won a match. You'd think he'd leave it alone. It would be Oba going after him. So the psychology of a lot of it just seems to be all wrong.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Jason. I guess, sorry, Jason.
No, I can see both sides of it. I think I probably tend to decide with Brian more in this one, that it doesn't bother me that much. And I think, the fact that Oba wants to fight Brock more than he wants to go for the title right now is fine. I think, we've saw that before. I don't know. I agree with what you said at the start, Al. They paint themselves into a corner with a lot of these kind of stipulations, and they don't need to do it. Just plan the story and then go with whatever the story is and build toward your matches. You don't need to have these kind of things. It's like whenever Triple H first took over booking, and he said, well, we're going to get rid of the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view because it ties us into having a Hell in a Cell match on this date every year. You're doing the same kind of thing here. If this doesn't serve the story and what your plans are, don't do it.
Yeah, and it's not acceptable. I mean, I'd say to say, well, the winner of the King of the Ring gets a title shot at SummerSlam. 2 days after a King of the Ring, forget that. He'll take the title shot some other time. This is the match, and Seth gets Roman for no other reason than, he called him out. It's
don't
just
even
a lot
start
of,
me on
which
that.
is
good Lord.
Right, which is a fine way, to create a main event. I mean, it's just the whole SummerSlam stipulation is the problem here. They created something that I don't know if they had no intention of following up on, but they didn't follow up on. So why do it at all? I don't know. I mean, just go back to giving them the crown and the scepter and all that stuff, which they sort of do anyway. I don't know that they need the whole SummerSlam a title shot stipulation. Other than for whatever it is now, close to 40 years, I think there has been. I think at a different time it was more accepted, but I think it speaks to sort of like generational changes in wrestling, that it's just not enough to say, what do you win? Oh, you win prestige. You win the title of King of the Ring.
But on the flip side of it, the problem is that it starts to make everything feel less important, because it's sort of like in baseball when you have, or other sports where you have all this postseason stuff, it makes the regular season feel less important. So if you have, if you win this, you get a title shot. If you win this, you get a title shot. And then you start to go, well, why should I even bother in having all these other matches then? You know what I mean? Like, if all I have to win is this thing to get a title shot, for me, it kills a lot of the excitement, because the idea is these guys are all year long, they're jockeying for position. They're trying to win. They're trying to get ahead. They're trying to get more TV time and get a better spot on the card. And when you have these two big, giant shortcuts that dominate the year, it takes a lot out of that. And then matches just become matches, or grudge matches, instead of anybody like thinking about going for titles.
Yeah, and one thing I'll point out is one reason that making the SummerSlam title shot official is not necessary is that for a long time it was sort of unofficially what would happen, in as much as the King of the Ring, what it was elevating a guy, right? It was elevating a guy into that main event status. And whether it was Owen Hart or Steve Austin or Mabel or Brock Lesnar, go on and on, you didn't need to say that the winner gets a title shot. It was implied that the winner is elevated to main event status, which should be enough. That's why I don't know. I guess Oba is a fine contender for it, but maybe I'd argue that he already was. He was already there. I mean, not only is he there, I think one saving grace of this shuffle is that it's looking more likely that they save Roman and Oba for WrestleMania rather than having done it at SummerSlam.
Right. Right. No, that would be a good WrestleMania match. It's a long way to get there, though.
Yeah, it's a long way to get there. Sorry, Al. I was just going to say, it's a long way to get there, but he already has this guaranteed title shot. So what does he say? I'm going to wait to WrestleMania and I'm going to get it then? Or do you do it before? Again, you've painted yourself into a corner with this. Where do you go?
Yeah. Yeah, and there's also something I think to say about all this, about what happens to the main event scene, and I suppose it's a good problem to have, to introduce these new names into the main event scene, but you got to sort of like reckon with what you do with the ones who are already there, and that's another one. Not to like have whiplash here, but that's another one of sort of my issues with Sami Zayn. It's like, well, now that's a world title. A match that you've got to like book is Sami Zayn versus somebody, and while you now Brock and Oba, I would think is the main event of one of the nights of SummerSlam, right? So I guess the Sami world title match, whatever it is, I don't know if it's in the middle, if it opens, and you still got to figure out Gunther and Cody and whoever else. That's assuming Punk isn't back soon. So it's just a lot. How about where they did get with the World Heavyweight title, Roman and Seth? And my sense, again, in terms of like shuffling things around, is that they've wanted to do this for a long time and have had really high hopes for it. I mean, if you look back to WrestleMania 40 and the ending of the story, Cody finishing his story, what it was Seth that cost Roman that match. At least that's kind of the story that they wanted to tell. So they have been teasing that when they get to Roman and Seth, this is as big a match as it gets. And yet I mean, we're 2 days into the build now, but I don't know that I see it that way. I don't know if a lot of fans see it that way. No question, star power, right? I mean, loads of star power, but does it have the marquee value that WWE thinks that it does?
Well, you also have to remember part of it is when Roman did defend against Seth Rollins, there was no clear winner. It was a DQ finish. So I mean that serves
a Rumble
this.
Match.
Yeah, that serves this. However, it just, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe this is totally subjective. It just is boring to me. It's like these guys again, I don't know. You couldn't think of anything better than that. It seems like this thing they could just pull out of their back pocket and just say, well, Seth is here anytime we need him because these guys have a history, so we could just plug it in. And I feel like that's what they're doing. And okay, yeah, they have a history, but it's like, okay, that was 12 years ago. Like, my son is watching wrestling with me. He wasn't even born when that happened. Like, look, I don't know. I feel like they've been squeezing the life out of this for so long. The only thing that would make it compelling to me is if Jon Moxley showed up in the mix of it, but that's never going to happen. So,
yeah. Is there any a thought? Well, sort of jumping ahead to how they book that. Could Seth win this? I mean, and the one thing that I wonder is Roman's availability, right? I mean, when he won the title at Mania, what he said, and I think we've addressed it here, is you're going to see a lot of me through the summer, which suggested that like that's about as long as you're going to see me, and then you won't see me. So is this them getting the title off of Roman and onto Seth? The flip side of that is it feels like the rebooted bloodline is just getting started. So are they really going to put that on the back burner for a while, Jason?
Again, I think this goes back to you saying that everything feels a little bit messy. I wouldn't be shocked if Seth wins, because remember, it was a year ago or just over a year ago that Seth was meant to be world champion and was going to have this big run as the leader of the Vision, and then that all fell apart due to injuries and everything. Just to kind of harken on what Brian was saying, that it really seems like they have been trying to have this match for 2-3 years now, and they are determined to make it happen. And I don't know whether it's Triple H or whoever just seems to love the idea of having this marquee match between these two. And that seems to be like the end goal of this, because I don't know if there's a follow-up plan after this as to what they do. I agree with what you said. The bloodline thing is actually starting to intrigue me at the moment. And with Solo Sikoa and trying to get him back into the group, and then his guys, Tamatonga leaving him and saying they don't want anything. I think that's intriguing. It's far more intriguing than what Seth Rollins and Roman are doing and are likely to do in the next few weeks, because I am just not interested. I'm sorry. Both guys are great, but there's nothing there for me anymore.
Also, because I was trying to sort of give time to this Jacob Fatu thing that they were coming out of, which to me was a complete just mess. Like we talked about it, how you really and truly, and I don't mean in a sarcastic way, like you could not tell who they wanted you to think was the good guy and the bad guy. And I don't mean that in a good way. It was just total confusion. You had Roman and the Usos acting very heelish, like just selfish, obnoxious, entitled. Like, and then you had Jacob. You weren't sure. Okay, so is he like the Stone Cold, like bucking authority, or is he the bad guy? And then in the end, he bows the knee and kisses the ring. Am I supposed to cheer for this? Like, he seems like a sellout. It was just a big mess. And I thought maybe this is not over yet. And it just seems like, yeah, we've just moved on from that. It was just a mess. And now here's a new mess that we're going to put together.
Yeah, it's all sort of confusing, and I think part of that also is, all of the bloodline, the way they're being booked now, it's really confusing because when Jay is with Roman in the bloodline, he's sort of back to like 2022 Jay, stone-faced, kind of curmudgeon-y, and I think he plays it well. I mean, I think I like that version of Jay, so the one who wouldn't suffer a Sami Zayn, and that guy. But then he comes out for singles matches or the King of the Ring final on Saturday, and he's yeeting and he's playing it back again, and it's like full babyface Jay, and it's just it's look and this is like the case for everyone, and I guess you got to give them time to figure it out if there is a plan. If the plan is let's get the whole band back together, including Solo, I even wonder if Sami is back in it. I mean, could you have sort of like the super powerful version of the bloodline that's got 2 world champions in it with Roman and Sami? I don't know. I mean, I could see that, and
it's an idea
for that. Yeah.
I mean, that's fantasy booking territory, but it's an idea because you have the background of, Sami kind of wanting a role in that group and having to earn it, and Roman not totally liking him. And now Sami shows up and says, look what I've got. I've got the same thing you've got. There might be something there.
Yeah. I think we've touched on this before, but Jason, what do you think of them? Just sort of, and there's no two ways about it. They're just back in on the bloodline, right? I mean, it sort of reminds me of WCW in the late 90s and early 2000s, where when all else fails, let's just reboot the NWO again. And it's not even subtle. I mean, there's just like bloodlines back, and they're just kind of doing 2023 version bloodline.
Yeah, this is Wrestling 101. This is what happens. If something worked once, it'll work another 14 times, which is not true. It does not. And this will prove to be the same. Again, I can't see what the end goal here is, because you're never replicating what the Bloodline did in their first original run. To me, this has to serve some purpose for Jacob Fatu, because if this doesn't culminate with him overthrowing Roman and really getting his revenge on him,
right,
then what the hell have we done? Because we have just cut the legs out from under a guy who was red hot coming into all of this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about it, but right, you don't have that Cody figure now like you did in 2023 and 2024, the kind of Luke Skywalker who takes down the Empire, except if it's Jacob, who is part of the Empire, right? I mean, so Brian, could that work? And
yes.
How much money is there? I mean, but is that, because I think there are people who are on the fence about Jacob Fatu and what his ceiling is.
Well, I think they've damaged him, unfortunately, and they have to fix him. And I think the reason anyone's on the fence here is just because of the mishandling of it. I mean, when he was naturally allowed to kind of do his thing and they were running with it, he was like a sensation, just sort of like what's the word for it? Just sort of like a sleeper hit, just unexpected. Oh my God, this guy's getting over. Let's run with it. And any black marks against him have not been his fault. It's been the outside circumstances. I think they could get him back to where they need to get him. And I think that would be a great story. I think, especially if Roman's going to be gone again, that's a perfect thing to do then, to have, you know what I mean? Because it's not like we're saying, oh, we're going to just put Roman, like they're not going to trade places. Roman's not going to all of a sudden be an upper mid-card guy. Like if Roman's going to be gone, then that's your opportunity right there.
So Jacob leads. You keep the bloodline going with Jacob as a leader.
Maybe so. I mean, I'm not saying for sure, but that would be one way to go with it, to have him as the new leader. I think that could be interesting, because the thing is, that's the way to vary it. Okay, we're doing the bloodline again, except now a new leader, which it's never had. There's always only been the one. I mean, I know they did the Solo Sikoa thing, but that was always sort of like there was a dispute. Who is the leader? Now we're going to say, nope, this is the new leader. That's never been done before. So that could be a way to keep it interesting.
Yeah, and I think he's got as much credibility as anybody to lead the bloodline, right? In terms of the resume and the charisma and what he brings to the table. You're always going to have those comparisons. I wonder if they do that, and whether the way to do it is to have Roman endorse him. So you do that match, and Jacob wins, and Roman coronates. He puts the Ulafala around the neck of Jacob and acknowledges him. I mean, can you see that happening?
I think that's probably less likely, but it would be a way. It's a tricky thing because, yeah, I mean, there's always going to be that element of backlash from fans. You're not Roman Reigns, and you definitely don't want that. And I feel like anybody's going to have to at least contend with that. I mean, it is one way to do it. It could backfire. It could be like Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior. Al, I know you definitely know what I mean. It could be that where that's the kiss of death, which basically it kind of was. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen, though. I think it's going to be like taken by force.
One name we haven't talked a lot about, Cody Rhodes. And Jason, you touched on it. I think there's a thought by a lot of people, maybe myself included, that SummerSlam is Cody versus Sami, and he just wins the title back. And I don't know how great that would be, right? I mean, it would be what, 3 world title wins in about a year for him, right? Since dropping it the first time. And I've wondered whether taking the title off of him and just having him go away for a while is not the worst idea in the world. I mean, I definitely think that there's some Cody fatigue, and before it grows too big, maybe this is as good a time as any just to get him off TV for a while.
I will say, I don't feel like the crowd has turned on Cody as much as I think they were going to at this stage. I think I expected this to go a lot worse. Maybe a year ago, I could see the crowd turning on him, especially like when he was over in Europe and he was wrestling Drew McIntyre, and like he got booed out of the building in Germany against Drew and stuff. So he's done a good job of rebounding from that. I think the worst thing they could do is put the belt straight back on him at SummerSlam. I think that's a terrible idea. I would like to see them just keep going with Sami and maybe take the foot off the gas a little bit with Cody. I don't want to see him go away from TV altogether, but lean back a little on it. I would like to see him work with some of the younger guys. I would like to see him have maybe some feuds with like Trick Williams or Ricky Saints or whoever, and try to bring up some of the other guys down there. I'm sure he is more than willing to do it. He's friends with a lot of those guys, so I think it would help him, it would help them, and it would kind of give his character a bit of a fresher feel to it.
The Ricky Saints thing is intriguing.
Where I thought... Go ahead, Ryan.
No, I was just going to say, because I know there's only so much that they could acknowledge, and they have acknowledged that they've crossed paths before and that kind of thing. But Ricky Saints actually beat Cody, right, in one of his first matches, and I think he won the TBS title from him, didn't he? I mean, they can't really come out and say all that, but there are ways they could sort of say, as a nod to some fans, like, it's not like I never beat you before, I could do it again, like the things like that you could do. I think Cody, though, I just want to say, as he's benefited very much. We've talked about how he's sort of that guy that always seems to be on the verge of fans turning on him, and you have to be so careful. Mm-hmm. I think he's benefited from WWE having a very different type of fan than AEW, because I think like the AEW fans, because it's all about the live fans when it comes to this sort of thing. Those are more kind of like diehard. They try to go to as many shows as they can. And, they really get into it and invest it. I feel like the WWE live crowds, especially these days, these are all people that are really splurging. This is a special thing for them. They're there mainly to have a good time. They're probably not, most of them, going to many, many shows because it's so expensive. And so it's like they're there just to get caught up in the spectacle. They love the entrances. They like singing the songs. I'm not saying they're not going to turn on anybody. I'm just saying I think it's harder for this fan base to turn on Cody because, like, from week to week, it's almost like hitting a reset button, if that makes any sense at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've wondered if worse than them turning on him is just them getting progressively less enthused, right? I mean, you think about that entrance, and a couple of years ago, where the cue in the song and it's whoa, they mean like 50,000 people or whatever, like as enthusiastic as you could be, and now it's sort of going through the motions like whoa, it's just a little less enthusiastic, and I don't know. Maybe it's making too much of that. Kind of getting back to Sami in a way. I assumed where this all was going was when you talk about him kind of moving out of the main event into the mid card. I thought he would drop the title to Gunther and then move into essentially a mid card feud with Sami, right? And I couldn't have expected that. Sami would be world champion and it would become a world title program. And I don't know what you do with Gunther from here. I mean, once again, he sort of feels like
Nick
odd
Aldis.
man out.
I think they should do it. I really do think they should do it because Adam Pearce repeatedly has said he has no interest in wrestling again and all this stuff. Nick Aldis, that has been a head scratcher from the very beginning. I mean, maybe I don't know enough about the behind the scenes, why he was brought in that role. I don't understand. He's very good at it, but I have been waiting for them to do something more interesting with him. And if he's committed to wrestling, I think that would be an interesting thing to do. I really do. Except the only problem is how do you introduce him like that, unless it's just going to be a one-shot thing and have him lose. If you're just going to say, okay, it's one time and then he's going to go back to being the commissioner, then okay, he'll lose. But if you've got bigger plans for him, he needs to win. He needs to beat Gunther, which is a little tricky.
Is it a way for Gunther to accrue another retirement, another legend retirement, and that this guy comes out of retirement for one match and then he puts him right back into retirement? I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, it does feel like with a lot of these guys and Gunther included, it's just like the start stop. It felt like they finally kind of got Gunther up and running again after beating Cena in December. And I don't know, unless SummerSlam is a triple threat rematch, like they just run back the Night of Champions match. But yeah, exactly.
So now you've got two boring world title match setups. Great.
Yeah. We haven't talked about the queen of the ring. I think this was less. Well, I think both the men's and the women's was kind of expected, but Io wins and goes right back to challenging Liv at SummerSlam. Jason, any thoughts on that?
I hated from the start that Liv Morgan was in this tournament as the champion. It just defeated the whole purpose. And I know they tried to explain it that if she won, she would go and get another title and have both of the belts. I didn't buy it. It just reeked of, we don't have enough strong women to put on this, so let's put her in there and she can take someone's spot. And it went to the end. So again, just what Brian said, it's another match that we've seen. We're going to get the women's title match between Io and Liv at SummerSlam. We just saw it at the weekend. It feels like WWE are running out of fresh matches, which they shouldn't be, because there's a ton of fresh faces there, but it just reeks of, well, here's the people that we can count on and that we're really confident in, and we'll just keep recycling them as much as we can with this. But
it's confusing to me. It's confusing because they have, like you said, Jason, they've got plenty of female talent. NXT is exploding with women. The women over there are killing it more than the men are. And it's baffling why. I mean, like I said, maybe there's reasons I don't understand. Maybe they feel like they're all not ready. I don't know. Some of the decisions, look what they did to Jordan Grace. I mean, what the heck? She's on main event. There's no reason that should be happening. None. So it is like this weird logjam that's happening that should not be happening.
It's like
I think
one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think the thought was, let's do Liv and Io for the Queen of the Ring in Saudi and give fans kind of whet their appetite and give them like this terrific match that they won't be able to wait to get it again, this time with the title on the line, except that it really wasn't that. I mean, there was nothing wrong with it, but I don't think anybody is, jumping out of their seats to see it again. And I think part of it is women's matches in Saudi are always a little bit challenged. There's always a little, both in terms of the audience and it's just sort of the awkwardness of them having to wear the scuba gear or whatever it is. It's not, if you're looking to put on a world-class women's match, probably best not to do it in Saudi Arabia. But yeah, overall, Jason, how do you think SummerSlam is shaping up? 2 nights, stadium, kind of a mini WrestleMania. We seem to have the big marquee matches in place with Oba and Brock and Hell in a Cell, and Roman and Seth. Does this feel like, the second or third biggest show of the year?
It certainly feels like the second biggest show of the year, I think, or at least I think that's how they approach it. Again, but it's just, I don't know. I'm going to have to see a bit more to get me terribly excited for it. And again, I don't know how I feel about the 2-night thing. Again, I think it forces you to have to come up with all of these matches. And I don't think anyone's thinking outside the box enough. And they just scramble for, oh, yeah, who's our marquee names? What's a marquee match? Oh, we've seen it 20 times before. Well, we can see it again, and then because, we can put it on a poster and it looks good for 2 nights. So I don't know. I would like to see more. I'm excited to see what the mid-card kind of shapes up for in the run-up to it.
Yeah, I was at SummerSlam last year, and that was my takeaway. I remember was that there wasn't 2 nights worth of action. There was one really good card, one really good 1-night card if they had just pared it down. But Brian, what are your thoughts on how SummerSlam is shaping up?
It's funny. I'm tempted to say it's early, but now that they've moved it up where it's like the end of July, it's really not so early. I kind of miss when they had the whole summer, and that was always so cool, that the whole summer, over the course of the summer, all these things are happening and building, and now it's the middle of the summer. So it is a little trickier. I would have to say it's not shaping up really all that well just yet. I mean, especially with how close it is. It's weird because in a way, SummerSlam has become like the second WrestleMania. I feel like Royal Rumble used to be the second biggest, and now it seems to be SummerSlam. But the way it's being treated, if this makes sense, like the way it's being booked, it doesn't feel that way. It just feels like it's just shuffled in between a million other pay-per-views. So, but yet we're still having it in a stadium and making it 2 nights. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What's cool about SummerSlam that I think should make it the second biggest card of the year behind Mania is that it doesn't have a built-in gimmick, whether it's the Rumble or Elimination Chamber or Money in the Bank. It's just theoretically a collection of the best matches you could put on at that time. So we'll see. A little aside here, your favorite SummerSlam ever, Jason?
I'm going to be biased. 1992 has to be, and I'll tell you
shocked.
why. I know, but I was 5 years old. It was the first. Wrestling was huge in the UK at the time. I was 5 years old. It was the first VHS tape that my parents bought me, and I watched it over and over and over. So it's responsible for a lot of the problems in my life that I now have as a wrestling fan. So, but 92 has to be.
Yeah, what's funny about that one is I think a lot of people say that, and it felt real special. But the main event, the world title match, was nothing. I mean, Warrior, and this is from a Warrior fan. Warrior Savage too was just
none of it's good. None of the show was good apart from Brett
the main event.
That's it.
Well, no, yeah, Brett and Davey was certainly good, and there was some other stuff that was okay. I don't remember the whole card.
Well, not only that, but the payoff with whose corner is Mr. Perfect in, like there was no payoff. It was just like Ric Flair just shows up. You don't know why. It was kind of a mess. I think, right, there's a whole story. I think there were definitely other plans that they had for that show. I don't think it was supposed to be Savage and Warrior. I don't know. I can't remember. But Flair was supposed to be doing more. I forget what it was. And I think it was maybe because they thought that Perfect was going to be able to wrestle, like they were going to make it a tag team match or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, but Savage, well, they were also following up on Savage Warrior at Mania 7, which was amazing. So I think there was a thought that those two could have a great match in that spot, and they just really didn't. How about you, Brian? Favorite SummerSlam?
Well, again, I guess this is proof that the stuff you love is from when you were a kid, but this is one that people don't typically say, but for me, it's 91 at Madison Square Garden. And I recognize... I recognize objectively a lot of people may not consider that the greatest SummerSlam ever. It's just, again, I remember that summer. I remember the incredible build. I was in high school. I remember Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect, and that was the beginning of Bret Hart being elevated into a single star, and I had been a fan of his. So I was excited about that. you had the Road Warriors, Legion of Doom, winning the title and getting that triple crown of all 3 major World Tag Team titles. That was very cool. I'll admit the main event, not the greatest main event ever, with Hogan and the Warrior against the Triangle of Terror, as they were called. The Mountie Big Boss Man prison match, phenomenal. And I'm sorry, but I was all in on the Randy Savage Elizabeth wedding. You could say whatever you want about me.
It was really
Bret Hart, Mr. Perfect.
Bret Hart, perfect. Yeah, of course. Perfect. Yeah.
That was the match.
That Steamboat's on the card. There was a lot of good stuff on
there. Yeah, Steamboat. And there was a lot of other good things on there. At least I thought. But that Bret Hart Mr. Perfect match, I felt like that was the start of something really special in the WWF at the time, because that really wasn't a company where you often said like quality of actual matches is a real important thing. It just wasn't that kind of place. When it happened, it almost seemed like it happened by accident, and people would say that's really what you watch the NWA for, or WCW, like they have the more like intense matches. And I feel like with that match, it really set a precedent in the WWF, like where it is actually possible for big stars in the WWF to put on very athletic matches that go for more than 10 minutes. I mean, yeah, now it's like a nightmare. It just never ends. But I mean, that was the beginning of saying, yeah, we could have really good, in the Meltzer version of that word, matches in the WWF.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. That was the first pay-per-view I've been to. I always say that was the first wrestling pay-per-view I attended, and the first wedding I attended was Savage and
I think it was a legal wedding. I think it was a renewal of vows. I actually think that the guy they had there was like an actual.
Oh, really?
No, I remember reading that it actually
and no shenanigans. They just did the wedding, until the reception and the Cobra, in a box.
That was not shown on the pay-per-view, though. It was not shown on the pay-per-view, if I remember right. So yes,
yeah. For similar reasons, nostalgia. Mine is 90. I always go back to SummerSlam 90. It was the Warriors' lone successful world title defense in a main event spot in a cage against probably his greatest opponent ever in Rick Rude, and they had a good match. And I thought Hogan and Earthquake had like a real big build for months and months. It felt like a big deal, and you had Sapphire running off with the $1 Million Man, and there's a lot of stuff on it.
Where's Sapphire? Have you seen Sapphire? Where's Sapphire?
Yeah, I really love that show. But yeah, it's a largely nostalgia, and it's funny because I could give you every match of those first or early SummerSlams, but I couldn't tell you what was on the card 2 years ago, or maybe even last year.
And Al, here's a cool thing about that SummerSlam too. You probably know this because you're a big Warrior fan, but that was the first pay-per-view where they had a world title match that didn't have Hulk Hogan in it. That was the first time that ever happened.
I didn't love that they build it as a double main event, because
well, of course,
but at least they put him.
Yeah, Hogan and Earthquake, they overshadowed it as the main event. But I mean, Hogan was not wrestling for the title; he was doing something else. Because even at WrestleMania 4, he was in the running, even though he wasn't in the final match, and that was for the title, but he was in the running. But I think now, all right, you said 90, I said 91. Jason said 92. I think we have all now proven that we are all completely lost in the 90s, and we are totally out of touch. So awesome.
Yes, right to us. Switching over to that other company, AEW, they also got a big stadium show coming up, Wembley Stadium, All In, and now we know at least part of the main event with Will Ospreay winning the Owen Hart and getting his title shot, unless he pulls an Oba Femi and says, "Nah, I'll do it later." But I would assume he's getting his title shot at Wembley Stadium, and this is what I think everybody has been waiting for since Will Ospreay signed years ago. Is this finally the coronation? And also against who? Because there's a question of whether it's a MJF, whether they have MJF drop the title to Kenny, and you do Ken and Will. Where do you think they're headed, Jason?
You're completely overlooking Mark Briscoe. Terrible, Al. Mark Briscoe.
True.
Yeah. Like, sometimes the obvious answer is the correct one, and Ospreay winning the tournament was the obvious and correct answer. And for me, he and MJF in the main event at Wembley is the correct choice. I am really baffled as to why they want to put, or why people think that the belt should go to Kenny, first of all, as a transitional champion to give them. I get they'll have a tremendous match, but I don't know, maybe it's the old school wrestling fan in me, but I would prefer to see an absolutely hated American guy come into Wembley and face the local hero. And MJF can lean into that so brilliantly, like he did when he was in CMLL, and play, you know, the arrogant American coming here and I'm going to show everyone. And Ospreay can have his crowning moment and get one better than him. It's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe Kenny gives you an extra half star or something in the Meltzer rating, but MJF is going to give you the reaction, the fan reaction, and the storyline and the build, and is not too shabby in the ring. I mean, I don't doubt that he could have every bit as good a match as Kenny could have with Will, if not better. He's probably 10 or more years younger than Kenny Omega. So. And motivated, to go in there and steal the show. Brian, what do you think about where they're headed? And in a lot of ways, if and when they pull the trigger on that in Wembley Stadium, in All In, you could make an argument for that being the biggest AEW match in history.
Yeah, I think that's the match. I mean, it's as simple as that. That is as good of a match on paper as you're going to put together. Two guys that, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. They've had relatively little to do with each other, right? I mean, they've kept them, and what's interesting about it, and I don't think this would be a thing that would backfire, but what I find intriguing is they both have very, very different approaches to like what makes a wrestling match great, and I'm optimistic. And I think that could really make some magic. Like MJF, and both as a character and I think even just as a person, his style, his preference of what wrestling is more that old school heel. I'm going to milk this crowd. Yes, I could do all the moves and everything, but I'm going to make things really mean things and let things sink in. And Will Ospreay is the video game character. You know what I mean? And I'm, yes, is there a chance that maybe that means they can't have a good match together? But I don't think that's the case. I think that they're both good enough and they're both adaptable enough that they could really make that work. The fact that they are both, it's not like an Omega and versus Ospreay. Like, this to me is more interesting because they're different from each other.
And given the quality of matches that both of them have had in big spots in the last year or something, it's almost scary to think where they're going to push this to. I mean, what will be the standard that they're trying to meet in delivering the main event of the biggest show of the year in front of their biggest audience of the year, Wembley Stadium, the coronation, presumably of Will Ospreay. They're going to shoot for, the moon for sure. So, I'm excited to see it. Again, didn't want to go too long, but wanted to spend a moment on TNA because they also had a show over the weekend. But a lot going on there. Not all of it good news. They took the title off of Mike Santana, putting it on Nick Nemeth, and word is that Santana maybe not long for TNA, maybe headed over to WWE. Also word today of Eric Young departing. Other departures in recent weeks seems to be maybe budgetary. And then we had all the news, again, not great news about Tommy Dreamer parting ways. Jason, kind of our TNA correspondent, what's your sense about how TNA is doing? And there are definitely some folks who are sort of like, I told you so. This is what happens when you get into bed with WWE.
Yeah, strange times. I mean, I've been watching the promotion since its inception, and I've saw them come through some pretty rough stuff and some pretty dark times. And this seems like one at the oddest time, whenever you have the best television deal you have had in decades. So it's so odd.
Yeah,
I have to say, I have stuck with watching TNA for a long time through a lot of weird stuff. I have never been more disinterested than I have been this year since they debuted on that TV channel this year when it was all meant to be all guns blazing. I have found the product to be very uninspiring. It's terrible to see someone lose their job, but I think in the long run, they will benefit from Tommy Dreamer being moved out of this position. I think even just watching Slammiversary, it was a much better show, a much more coherent show than TNA have been doing recently. The news of all the people moving on, the likes of Mike Santana and stuff, it seems to be where TNA exists now. You are a development league for WWE, which, fine if that's what you're going to go with, but you need to bring in some younger wrestlers then and get them back to there and start preparing them for moving forward. Relying on, guys like Nick Nemeth or Eric Young or whoever is not the way to go with this. And going forward, I would like to see TNA kind of lean into more younger people coming through and preparing them for going forward.
Yeah, it's Brian. Maybe you know this is what's the word on Brian James, Road Dogg, showing up up there? Is he official or are those just rumors?
It's not official last I saw, but pretty strong rumors. Like it seems to be. In fact, I think he was even at Slammiversary. It's one of those things where they're trying to iron it out. Like I think it's probably going to happen, and I think that all parties want it to happen. It's just I don't know if it's like some kind of a non-compete or whatever it may be, which is weird because what may smooth that out is the fact that both companies are working so well together. But I think probably that is what's happening. Yes.
Yeah, and you'd think that'd be a good addition. I mean, not to give the guy too much credit, but certainly I've heard people point out that some of WWE's creative woes coincided with his departure. So I don't know how much credit he gets for some of what WWE was doing right.
Yeah, and there was also something, I don't know if you guys know anything about this, but like I remember hearing that part of the conflict that was going on there was having to do with the whole R-Truth thing, where because it was a very weird thing where all of a sudden R-Truth was now Ron Killings. He was going to be super serious. Everybody was on board, and then he just goes back to being R-Truth. So I think my understanding was that Road Dogg was the one that was pushing for the Ron Killings thing.
Yeah.
And he got shot down, and that was like a big part of where the problem started there. But, I think from what I understand, he seems to be a guy with great ideas. I just think maybe he ran his course in WWE. That's all.
Yeah. One of the frustrations I've got with TNA, and it is odd, Jason, as you touched on, that what should be their biggest year, right? I mean, on paper, you got a working relationship with WWE. You're on AMC, the biggest TV network they've ever had by far, and one of the best that you could have. Yeah. Period on cable, and yet the product feels kind of stagnant. And I think part of it was that the misfire right out of the gate and on that first show. But I also think it's they've really struggled to like create stars. And I don't know that I could give you like the magic recipe for doing it. But when you've got guys like Nick Nemeth and the Hardys and these legends, and those guys have plenty of gas in the tank. It's not to say that like there's not a value in having them, but I think the idea is like, all right, let's create some stars from within, and it's just not happening. They've got guys who are super talented, who I think they want to do that with, but they just can't get past a certain level. And I absolutely do think, and I understand both sides of it, but they took a big step back. I was at Slammiversary last year, and I think there were like 3 title matches or something, and they were, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but they were like all won by WWE people. I remember a Trick won the world title, and they had one of the NXT women win the women's title, and it just felt so kind of beholden to WWE. I mean, it was just absolutely on a bullhorn proclaiming for the world, like, we are somewhere beneath WWE's developmental system, which makes it even challenge, like, for us, recognizing the NXT world title as a world championship. Right. But you're slotted beneath NXT people. And I think that was just sort of like, I don't want to say it was like the death knell, but I do think it hurt them in trying to establish themselves as the number 2, and there was, some thought for a while that maybe they'd give AEW a run for their money, and that just seems sort of like way in this.
Yeah. I know. I was one of the people saying that could happen. That's clearly not going to happen. I was amazed. Like, I really sat down and gave my full attention when they debuted on AMC. I was like, oh, this is interesting. And I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was just like, not only does this just feel like an average episode of the show, it feels like a not very good episode of the show. So what are they thinking? I remember sitting there going like, they clearly must have production meetings like, okay, guys, we're premiering on AMC, and like, that's what you do. I was mystified.
I think the company really lost something when Scott D'Amore left.
Yeah,
they lost a good eye for talent and a lot of the creative juice that they had. And God bless him, but Tommy Dreamer was not the guy. I can't remember who made the comment in the past few weeks, but they basically said that in the 90s, the 2 people who listened to Paul Heyman the most were Tommy Dreamer and Gabe Sapolsky. And Sapolsky listened to all of the good stuff, and Dreamer listened to all of the bad stuff, and that was reflected in their booking styles going forward. So I think they can turn the corner here, but I feel like they've kind of missed a moment. Even with and we've talked about it before in the podcast, but it felt like they were too late to pull the trigger on Joe Hendry winning the world title. They were late on Mike Santana winning the world title. And Dreamer has come out in the past week or 2 and defended those decisions. And, oh, yeah, but we were telling a story and Santana was fine and we were going to put it on him and everything else. It's like, no, make these decisions. Everyone else can see this. How can the people in the company not see it? And it's hurt you in the long run.
Yeah. If Road Dogg is in and Dreamer's out, that may, I don't know how much of a difference that makes, but it's at least the start of something. And I don't know how much there is to some of the financial issues that you hear about, but you hope they've got the resources and the time to stay afloat for a while. All right, guys, thank you so much. Jason, before we head out, anything you want to tell readers about where they can follow your work?
No, just you can follow me online at jbladeko on Twitter, or on X as it's called, and subscribe to the PWI weekly newsletter. Check out the ratings on pwi-online.com and subscribe to the magazine.
All right, excellent. And Brian, what have you got going on this summer?
Yeah, well, I've got the podcast Shut Up and Wrestle, of course, with Brian R. Solomon. I just had a really, really big episode with MJF, which got a lot of positive feedback and even caused a little conflict on Twitter because I guess Swerve Strickland took issue with one of the comments that MJF said about how peaceful the AEW locker room is. So I don't know how much of that was a work or not, but so the show's been doing well. I've got get different guests all the time. I'm doing a series on the NWA World Champions, and I've got an episode coming up about Harley Race where my guest is going to be Dan Murphy, our very own Dan Murphy.
Oh, great.
And also the Patreon for that podcast as well, patreon.com/shutupandwrestle. There's free and premium content on there. I do pay-per-view watch-alongs. I was doing the complete match record of Gorilla Monsoon in connection with my book, and I just wrapped that up, covering like the entirety of his wrestling career in like 15 different episodes. So that's patreon.com/shutupandwrestle.
Yes. And Dan Murphy won the Melby Award, right, for the Hall of Fame. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. It's very, very good for him.
I can't believe we've done a whole podcast and haven't talked about Enzo Amore's imminent return to WWE. Maybe next time.
That is insane. I literally thought it was April Fool's for a second. I just really did. I'm like, wait, it's July. Like, that's how weird and out of the blue that looked like to me. Like, what in the world? But I guess it's happening. I don't know. Just like 2016.
What do you think? I'm glad you brought it up. Yeah, and that's like a thing, right? 2016, the kids are like nostalgic for 2016 these days.
The weird thing is, like, the same way I try to convince people, I'm just like, you don't understand. But for 6 months in the year 2000, Scotty 2 Hotty and Grandmaster Sexay were like The Rock and Steve Austin. Like, they were at that level of being over with the crowd. And Enzo and Cass had this weird year where they were like the biggest thing on the show. But it was only like a year, and they were in NXT for like 3 or 4 years before they finally came up. So, I mean, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how well they're even remembered by this audience, how much of a reaction.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, I mean, how many fans were watching then? How many of them will know like the chants and to go along and all? Like I don't
Also,
know. It really is a test to like how big a deal were they?
it was extremely hot, but it was for a short time. That's the thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what makes me think that maybe, I don't know if people are really going to be that into it, but we'll see. We'll see. Anything's got to be better than what Big Bill was doing in AEW. Anything has to be better than that.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a part of me that happy to see somebody get another chance, because when Enzo left year ago, I mean, I think he left with not the greatest reputation, right? And there was a thought that like he drummed himself out of the wrestling business. And to his credit, has like really hustled over the last 10 years to stay relevant and to stay busy. And my sense of like seeing some interviews and stuff, maybe he's done some growing up. So yeah, I'm happy to see WWE say like, sure, come on back, give it a try. And with Cassidy, Big Bill, again, one of these guys who on paper checks a lot of boxes. Huge, great looking, great body, all this stuff. I don't know. I've never super impressed by him other than physically. I mean, he looks like a specimen, but that's kind of it.
Well, Enzo was the money in
but
that
the act, more something part. Yeah. But it works better with both of them, I guess. I don't know.
Like, let me put it this way.
We'll
if
see.
you had to have only one and replace one, clearly you're keeping Enzo and finding some other big guy to stand behind him. Clearly, right? No?
Yes.
I mean, what? There's no way it works without Enzo.
But Enzo doesn't work without on his own, right? Remember when they
No, I don't mean that. I mean like
5 Live.
Yeah. Oh, that was
they sort of built it around him, and he was like the cruiserweight champion or whatever, and that didn't work either.
No, that was horrible because they were just booking him like a regular cruiserweight. What I'm saying is like the Enzo and Cass thing. Like you can have Enzo and some other big guy who's not Cass, and I think that would be fine. But you can't have Cass and some other little guy who's not Enzo. Like no one will care about that. That's the difference.
No. Yes. Somebody call.
I'm sorry. I've sent this podcast off the rail. I'm sorry.
Jason, this is your fault.
Sorry.
No, I love stuff like this. All right, guys, a lot of fun. I wasn't expecting an Enzo conversation. Yeah. See, I didn't even remember that one yet, so we'll see. All right, guys, thank you so much. We'll do it again soon.
All right.